Hello, love. Do you ever think about endings? Does it ever fascinate you how we make such a big deal out of creating ritual boundaries around everything? Time, events, experiences, people, relationships. Maybe calling it endings is even the wrong tag to give to this expression because birthdays, weddings, and the like also fall under this universal human sentiment. This human need to mark things like an abiku. Do you ever feel like this is what people chase when they dress, shave, spray their most expensive perfumes, and then go to their ex's houses for closure? Who knows these things? I like the way we express this feeling in tertiary schools in Nigeria though. Sometimes I feel like we don't realize just how layered and beautiful our graduation rituals are in this, our not so little chaotic, colorful corner of the world. How we kick off celebrations with a final year week, or final year brethren week, SUG week, or whatever else it's called in other schools. A week-long celebration where goodbye tries on different costumes, both as a metaphor and literally. Funny enough, this ritual dates back to the 70s/80s, born like many other weird, fun, and sometimes useful cultures in Nigeria from the church, or to be more specific, student fellowships. Honestly, it's little things like this that tickle the Darwinian in me. The way not only organisms evolve into entirely new species, but also ideas, cultures, customs, and traditions, taking on a new life of their own while in some cases holding on to little identifiers from the past, like the brethren in FYB. In its current form, FYB as we know it has been wholly severed from its student union roots in most schools. And what began as a series of activities that likely never exceeded 2-3 days now exists as a 5-day, 5 costumes, 5 nights, 5 parties long celebration fueled by a fuck ton of booze, dirty wines, and not very godly music. The idea of a final year week is exciting on its own, but when you get into the details and the symbolism of how this ritual, if we can call it that, works, it starts to get a little more fun, at least for me. Across different schools in Nigeria and even departments in schools, the lineup of activities is usually different, but by and large they follow a similar template. Day 1 is always corporate day everywhere. Goodbye cosplaying a corporate executive, the deity of traditional jobs, bankers, accountants, engineers, responsibility and stability, the Nigerian image of legitimate success. 3-piece suits, bust-down wigs, perfect heels, trim haircuts, career symposiums, job interviews, long winding speeches about the importance of planning the future in a country with plans of its own. Then on a different day, nostalgia takes the wheel. Y2K, back to school, old school, and the likes. I like to think of this day as an ode to the past, to the young, naive people who thought they had reached the pinnacle of achievement when they saw their JAMB admission letters, but also as a spiritual antithesis to corporate day, where one is built around hope for the future and the other around acknowledging the past, the journey, and the beach full of footprints from the past. When you greet Iwajokmo, it's tantamount that you greet Anyokwo, or how did the Ifa priests even say it? Some variations have a day where we see goodbye dressed as a victory lap, in sport jerseys and attires across every sport you could conceive of. You know, it's one thing to say goodbye with words, and something else entirely to be physical about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, most people rarely ever do anything sporty on that day, except a few here and there. Victory lap here for me is summarized into the costume, not an actual lap. The alternative to this is often denim day, goodbye dressed as a cool kid in jeans. Of all the days though, my favorite is costume day, or in some schools rag day, goodbye dressed as a shapeshifter, as something else. Superman, Naruto, Abulu the Madman, Lai Wasabi, Barbie. The list ends at the limits of your imagination. It's the performance of an out-of-body experience, a Freaky Friday simulation of some sort, an expression of another universal human sentiment which has existed across time and geography. Pull the clock back a few centuries and these would involve these young people carrying masks and masquerades in and out of shrines and temples. Change the geography and it goes by a different name, Halloween. It's interesting how no matter how much the costumes differ, as long as human beings remain the prime apes on this planet, masquerades will always be alive and well, just dressed a little bit more contemporary and interesting. Regardless of the preceding days though, the final day, just like the first, is always the same, usually. The bye-bye wave that started as a firm English handshake completes its arc in its full and final form. Nigerian, loud, proud, excessive and expressive. Ankaras, Agbada, Isiago, Ipele, Gele, George, wedding parties, Thanksgiving parties, parties in every language and traditional attire you can conceive of. A day that makes a deliberate effort at scratching the Western tag of our education and owning it fully. A declaration that while our textbooks might be written in a different language, our tests written in a different language, even our certificates signed in a different language, our goodbyes, our closing rituals, those belong to us. Thank you. As that graduation Thanksgiving song goes, many years, many courses, many overnights, many friends don't waka, but above all else, we must carry go. So we must face our fears, the past and the future, wrestle with them drinking arm in arm, and beautify them with costumes and celebrations. Or whatever the song says, I guess. But as dramatic as these final year rituals seem, they are merely forerunners, foreplay if you like. And like any good act of foreplay, it can always get better, or more, shall we say, intimate. And that's where the sign-out ceremony comes in. My first experience of signing out was in secondary school. I still have the white shirts in my wardrobe. The signatures are a bit faded now, but they're still there in their little smart prints. Have you ever wondered what the point of sign-out is though? Like, why do we do that? Well, the genealogy of sign-out ceremonies is more familiar than you realize. It's from athletes signing jerseys and other clothing items for fans as keepsakes in the early 20th century. The culture picked up steam when it trickled down into Hollywood in the 50s and eventually made its way into schools across the world. And then to Federal Government College Odobolo, and then to University of Lagos, Akoka, and then to the random babe who saw me in a cab on the day of my sign out and begged me to sign on my shirt, and then, unfortunately, to the fool that signed this nonsense on my shirt. Today in tertiary schools in Nigeria, signing out as a culture has come a long way from its keepsake origins. Of course, it still serves a memorabilia purpose, but for now the culture has taken on a new and more interesting meaning. Now it's not just about the shirts or the signature, it's about the act of signing itself. Sign out as a stamp of approval from your community. To sign out is for people around you, in fact, everyone you encounter, to put a stamp of approval on your shirt that says, "You were here, It's an affirmation. Everyone placing their hands on you, wishing you good luck as you embark on your new adventure. You don't sign out in as much as your community signs you out. When your friends come from really distant places just to sign your shirt, they're not asking you to remember them by signing on your shirt. They're attesting. It's a signature of agreement. Same with the random babe who saw me in the cab on the day of my sign out and begged me to sign on my shirt. And unfortunately, the fool who wrote this nonsense on my sign out shirt. That's the true beauty of the sign out ceremony. The marking is more important than the mark, the signing more important than the sign, and the collective more than the individual. And this brings me to the final ceremony, where the celebration of the individual and the collective finally blend into one. One large gown and gathering, one last goodbye. Convocation. I read somewhere once that in Western societies, it's individuals who get married, but around these parts, it's families. The same can be said about graduation ceremonies. It's about you, but it's also not about you. It's about your family, it's about the school and its officials, it's about your friends, it's about everyone who comes around to rejoice with you and your parents. It's about you, but it's also not about you. Everyone is a celebrant in their own right. The school throws an elaborate ceremony to pat itself on the back for its role in building society one graduate at a time. While closing another chapter, the family picks it up after with yet another ceremony, but this time with canopies, food and music to celebrate their accomplishments and having a university graduate in the family. Because here, the family unit, like an individual, has an identity and reputation of its own, which in some cases is independent and more important than those of its members. Friends and well-wishers also come around to join in the ceremony and celebrate their affiliation with you. Because in our society, the true measure of success is in the number of people who come around you to celebrate your success. Finally, in the center of all the ceremony and celebration is still the graduate, on the third and final leg of university goodbye rituals. Dressed in a ceremonial attire dating back to the 12th century, used by early university scholars to deal with the cold winters, now evolved into a costume representing the climax of academic success, worn across schools in the world, and more specifically schools in tropical sub-Saharan Africa with no winter. And with this graduation ritual complete, the individual is finally able to cross to the other side, having completed the personal rituals with their final year week, the communal rituals with their sign out, and now the collective ritual with their convocation ceremony. I've taken a lot of your time, so I'll just close this letter with a diary entry I wrote on the hungover morning after my final year week. Closing rituals are very necessary. From the very concept of year ends to quarter ends to weekends to mundane things like send-off parties, bachelor nights, and graduation ceremonies, there are no two words more important to a story than the end. It wraps things up neatly for new stories to be born without the undead ghosts of the past loitering. It's why burials are so important. These rituals help the human psyche create a clear demarcation between what was and what is. So I guess you could look at every ending as a little burial of some sort, a little celebration of life and living and leaving. There's nothing worse than not getting a chance to say goodbye. Or as the Yoruba would say, better a dead child than a lost child. That will be all from me for now, my love. Talk to you soon, and hopefully about more interesting things.